Welcome to Raptors Today. I'm Savanna Hamilton alongside Paul Jones. Sherman Hamilton and Amy Audibert will be joining us a little bit later. Now we have to talk about the man himself. Fred VanVleet has been on fire. The team, the Raptors, they haven't lost a game since 2022 turned its calendar year. Jonesy, could Fred VanVleet be not only an all-star potentially, we're still pushing for that one, but could he win Player of the Month of January?
Yeah, well, look, Raptor fans, you heard Savannah. If you're out there, you want to see Fred in Cleveland, the All-Star game, vote for him. And the team is also winning now, too, and I think that'll help him with the coaches. Player of the Month for January, Savannah, he's off to a great start. I mean, he's had a calendar stretch probably from, I would say, the middle of December to where we are now, the first 10, 11 days in January. If you take that month, he's definitely going to get a nod. He's still got some more work. I mean, not that he hasn't been great. He's been over 30 in 6 of his last 8. And as Sherman and I said on the radio, it was like we get to a point in every game recently where Fred says to somebody, hey, hold my drink, man. I got work to do. And he goes and does his thing. He's over 30 in 6 of his last 8. Sherman asked him yesterday about an offensive rebound. Like he just kind of doing everything right now. And he's off to a great start in January, to your original question, but he's still going to have to prove himself the rest of the month. Not that he hasn't proven himself already, but you think about the schedule. Phoenix next up. There's a Milwaukee in there. There's 2 with Miami, Chicago. Like you have some good teams and some other playoff type teams. You got Charlotte in there that Toronto's going to have to kind of keep this thing rolling against. No question, Fred's an integral part of that. But as for the month, he's still got a little bit of work to do. But nobody's going to scoff at what he's done so far since we flipped the calendar to January.
Absolutely. And, for the fans out there, vote Fred VanVleet. And the way to vote for him is at him on Twitter and use the hashtag NBA All-Star. Sure, how does Fred VanVleet fit into the lineup that Masai and Bobby and Nick Nurse put together in terms of, the rest of the guys are so lengthy and strong. They're 6'8", they're 6'9", but here's Fred VanVleet, coming in. I think he's around 6 foot. Let's give him that.
Generous.
Generous. So sure. How does he fit in with this lineup? And is this a recipe for success?
Well, Sav, what I've learned in life is that there's always exceptions to the rules. And, no matter how you look at it, no, he doesn't fit the metrics and the dimensions of the long, lengthy player that we've all heard the Raptors talking about going into this season. But I tell you what, his brain is 7 feet, his heart is 7 feet, and his game is 7 feet. So I think when you look at, what we talk about physical dimensions, sometimes it just doesn't matter. Some guys are able to neutralize all those proposed deficits and turn them into complete opposite positives for themselves, and Fred does that. We saw in the game yesterday, we saw his ability to actually step further from the three-point line and shoot the ball with more arc. Well, guess what? Now he's neutralizing the length of defenders, and he's really giving himself more space to operate off the dribble and blow by people. So Fred has this ability to navigate and figure things out and kind of use what he has and just build on it and make himself so effective. So he doesn't fit into the physical characteristics of what the Raptors talk about, but neck up and the ability in his heart to play as hard as he does, and his decision-making and his toughness and all the things you love about Fred really make you forget about his size at times. And you just understand this guy just straight out and flat out can ball and get the job done. And like Jonesy said, over the last, say, 30 days, he has been absolutely phenomenal. And nobody's talking about Fred not fitting those metrics now, are they?
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, during this win streak as a whole, the teams, the Raptors, they have faced teams that have dealt with health and safety protocols. But last night, you mentioned the Pelicans, Sherm. Nick Nurse kept a tighter rotation, an 8-man rotation during this game. So Jonesy, what did you think about the shorter bench? Because he's been typically using and going deeper into the bench during some other games. But what did you see last night during the Pelicans game that differed compared to the rest of the win streak?
I think Nick always goes by feel, Savannah. It just, there are times when, the energy's not good. He thinks he needs a guy. You might see Champagne. You might see Banton. He looks at matchups. I'm sure he considers, like back-to-backs and, 3 and 4 nights and resting guys. And I think if you're a Raptor fan, you have to trust the feel of Nick Nurse and the way he coaches. And yesterday he went with 8, and it was Svi, Boucher, and Precious off the bench. Sherman and I talked about this again on the radio side. I thought both Precious and Chris Boucher gave tremendous energy. They lent tremendous energy to the game. And when a guy's going like that and he's playing well, Nick Nurse is of the mindset, I'm going to reward this guy. It's not like he's not giving me what I need and I'm going to look for something else. I've talked about this with Nick, where a guy plays well in the first half. Do you start him in the second half, or do you kind of go back? He says, well, no, I think at times you start that guy to show him I'm with you. I'm rewarding you for what you're doing. And I think that's kind of what it came down to with especially Achua and Boucher off the bench yesterday. He left them in there for good long stretches, and there wasn't a need to kind of delve deeper into the bench. Yeah, sure, some guys like Fred and Pascal played a whole lot of minutes, but they're your best players, so they're going to be on the floor. So I think if you're a Raptor fan, you just have to trust Nick and what he wants to do with the rotation. And there's you can't, over the last 6 games anyway, whether it's deep into the bench or a short, tight 8-man like yesterday, I don't think you can argue because of the way the team's playing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Now we're going to listen to head coach Nick Nurse for his thoughts after practice.
I think the big thing, I always say this, and Fred's doing it, you just got to make the right play. And if they're putting, if they're putting 2 on you, you got to get off it to the open man. And again, you've done your job if that's it. And I've been fairly happy, Michael, with, the reads the guys are making. They're getting a little bit of everything. They're getting it to a guy. We're getting some slash cuts to the rim. We're getting some kick outs open. We're getting a kick out to a swing pass to open. So that, it shows you that the spacing and the familiarity of where they're supposed to be is getting to a good place. And that's really it. That's how Fred impacts. He just continues to make the right play. And like you said, having confidence when he gets off it to Precious, something good's going to happen when he gets off it to Kim.
Jonas Valanciunas made his return back to Scotiabank Arena. Now, unfortunately, there were no fans to, welcome him back and everything. But, Sherm, going to you first on this one. Unfortunately, there was no fans there. But how great was it to just kind of see him back? And do you think the Raptors faithful fans would have liked to see him again?
Oh, no question about it, Sav. I mean, Jonas in Raptor history is probably one of the most likable players in terms of who he is just as a person. We saw Jonas in a Raptor uniform go from a guy who was not very mobile at times to a very mobile big. And I really credit Jonas for understanding the trajectory of the game and seeing that plodding big guy that was playing on the block was something that the NBA was moving away from. So he had to figure out a way at 7 feet to stay relevant. And Jonas worked on his quickness. He lost weight. He got stronger. He developed a 3-point shot. He did all the things that would keep him relevant. And now we're seeing the hybrid game of Jonas. He can step out to the 3-point line, as we saw in the game against New Orleans, and shoot the ball. And he can also go down low and he can hurt you. So his versatility and his determination to stay relevant in the league took a lot of hard work. And he's really reaping the rewards. I mean, he had 20 and 17 against the Raptors. So He's a very, very balanced player. And, Jonesy and I have dealt with Jonas on a personal level, off the court, the conversations. And he is one of the most humble, nicest, funny, engaging people you'll ever meet. And that's what I take away from Jonas. He's done a phenomenal job on the court. But knowing Jonas and speaking to him on the level that we've communicated with him on, he's just a very, very good human being. And that's what I think people connect to with Jonas beyond basketball. He's just a good guy, as we'd say in general terms. So I think the fans would have showered him with adoration and love and appreciation for what he was able to do to help this thing move towards a championship, because he was right there. Remember, I mean, it was Marc Gasol that really took his place at the end of the day and ended up getting a championship. So for Jonas, you feel bad for him from that perspective, but you're happy for his career in the way that it's gone.
Absolutely. You know, also he added the slick back haircut to his game too. I was like, okay, I see you. But then also, you know, what I also miss is the GoDaddy commercial he was in with the tiny ballers. You guys remember that?
Yes. You know, Sav, just to tag what Sherm was saying, we remember when he came in here the day after he was drafted, and he could barely put a sentence together working on his English. And it was, you could see that he wanted to communicate. He just didn't know how to as yet. And to Sherm's point, that's all come out since he's learned the language and become adjusted culturally. You know, he stood there and talked to a bunch of us yesterday, reporter types, media types, again, long enough that the New Orleans strength coach had to say, the same way Alex McKechnie used to, are you going to talk or are you going to come and warm up? And if you let him, he'd stay there and engage and chat with you, talking about ice fishing and everything else. So to Sherm's point, I feel great for him. And look, he's putting up good numbers, having a good year too. Absolutely.
And, you know, Jonesy, sticking with you on that, you know, someone who's also putting up good numbers, but kind of flying under the radar is OG. You know, he's been, is that a good thing? Because, you know, on the scouting reports, you know, they're probably focusing maybe more on, you know, Fred VanVleet, on Siakam, maybe even Scotty Barnes, but here's OG just putting up these silent numbers.
Oh, they know who he is on the scouting reports. I mean,
they better.
Yeah, they better. And they better read that scouting report too. And as you said, doesn't it just fit in OG's personality? And I always kind of said this, and I have to be careful with the comparison. He has a lot of Kawhi-like properties and traits and characteristics. He's quiet. He's unassuming. He plays extremely hard. He's very skilled. Like all of those things mix into what we know as OG Anunoby. And you know, he's dynamic defensively, whether it's on the ball or in the passing lane. He can rebound. He does all the scoring stuff you need. So he is flying under the radar. And you know what, Savannah, because he's not a media darling or has this, you know, ostentatious or gregarious personality, he's going to continue to fly under the radar. And OG's the kind of guy that's like, hey man, I get it done on the court. My game does the talking. And that being said, I'm sure we know this from talking to other people in the locker room. He's got a great sense of humor. He's one of the guys, and it's a different guy than we see on the floor that's in the locker room or interacting with his teammates. So yeah, he's flying under the radar on the court, but he's still effective. And please, if you're an opponent, don't sleep on him, or else it's going to cost you.
Absolutely not. You know what? OG has a quiet confidence, which I personally really appreciate in him. But Sherm, we got to talk about a not so quiet moment. Chris Boucher was just exhausted. We had a clip of him, you know, checking out and just collapsing on the bench. Sherm, what did you think of this clip? And can you personally empathize with somebody who's just totally gassed? They left it all on the floor.
Well, Sav, I can definitely appreciate it. To your point, I think when you think about Chris Boucher and the kind of season he's had, you know, it really hasn't been a straight linear line going upwards. He's gone down, he's been out of the rotation, he's been in it, he's gotten some spot minutes here and there. He's had a pretty interesting start to the season. And you look at him now, and it seems like he's come to peace and come to terms with what this team needs from him on a consistent basis for them to have success. And I think Chris Boucher's opinion of what he could do for the team to help them was a bit different than what the Raptors felt. I mean, we saw Chris get into the game and he start to look for a shot right away. And I think they've gotten the message to him, and he's accepted it, that his energy, his rebounding, and when the offense presents it, take those shots, but the other elements are just as important. And there just seems to be a different feel. So when he hits the floor now, it's about the hustle stats, the intangible plays. And when he hit the bench that time, he had laid it out on the floor. Everything, the tank was empty. And if you're a coach, you appreciate that, because that's what you want with guys coming on into the game. Leave it out there. Give it all you got. Come off, get a blow, get back out there and do the same thing. And Chris Boucher, and even in the game against New Orleans, you could see his energy was changing the game. He and Precious coming off the bench. So it seems like he got it. But that clip of Chris laid out on the bench, completely exhausted, done from putting it out there on the floor. I think the Raptors would love to see that every time, Sav, see him leave that type of energy and impact the game that way.
I was told as a player to never show that you're tired. But
well, you probably weren't making millions of dollars, Sav.
That is very true. If I was, I don't know if I'd be hosting this show.
100%. There you go.
However, I will say when I saw that clip of him, the first thing that crossed my mind was that's like me when my parents asked me to do something when I was already about to do it. I just collapsed. I'm like, oh, really? Anyway, we're now going to head over to our colleague, Amy Audibert, to hear her thoughts on the Raptors 905.
Thanks, Sav. And the 905 are off to a really hot start in this, check it out, tongue twister, 2-0 in 2022 after they just swept the Fort Wayne Mad Ants this past weekend. And when you look at game one, it was all about the rookie, Obadiah Noel. When you look at the first 12 games he played of the showcase portion of the season, he averaged 10 points, 3 rebounds, and 2 assists. Really was the energy guy to come in and just provide energy, full court defense, lots of pressure. But in game one of 2022, he dropped 28 points, went 6 for 7 from long range, still rebounding the ball, still facilitated, but wow, he was hot. Moving on over to the second game of the sweep, it was Isaac Bonga's evening, 22 points, 17 rebounds, 5 of those rebounds on the offensive glass, 2 steals. The Raptors have gotten a little bit of a look at what Isaac Bonga can bring, but with the 905, he gets to continue to showcase his ability on both ends of the court. He's really assertive, jumping passing lanes and stealing, tipping the ball, getting some deflections. And then on the offensive end, he can shoot the 3, but his strength is really when he's aggressive and he gets to the rim. And the 905 are going to welcome back some familiar faces and some new ones too. Joining Isaac Bonga tonight is some more assignments in Justin Champagny, Malachi Flynn, Delano Banton, and the new face, newly acquired, just signed this morning, Jody Meeks. You would remember him because he was on that 2019 Toronto Raptors championship team. He's got 10 years of experience. I think it's brilliant to bring a guy in like this. So when those assignees are down, they can learn, they can just really soak up any advice, wisdom that Jody can pass along. And it's going to be a tough one tonight at 7:30 in Mississauga because the Long Island Nets are in town and they bring Craig Randall, who through the first 3 games of this regular season in the G League is averaging 35 points per game.
The Raptors are facing the Western Conference champions, the Phoenix Suns. And yes, Golden State has the big names and the big return of Klay Thompson, but Phoenix is currently number 1 in the West. So, Jonesy, will this be one of the biggest tests for the Toronto Raptors this season?
Without a shadow of a doubt. It is a measuring stick, and it's nice that the Raptors are relatively healthy to be able to go against a Suns team. And I mean, it's all about the protocols to see who's in or out, but relatively healthy to see how they measure up. And what's happening in Phoenix now takes me back to a previous time. The Suns established something in the bubble. They went undefeated, they missed the playoffs. And then they got Chris Paul in that offseason. And it reminds me of what happened when the Suns were really good in 2003, 4. And all of a sudden, they go and get one piece. The team is okay. And they go get Steve Nash, who brings leadership, scoring, pulls people together as a unit, makes the chemistry work. And he's the catalyst and things take off. They went and got Chris Paul and did the same thing. I mean, and they've put the pieces together very well. Monty Williams comes in, great coach. Give credit to James Jones in that front office. Devin Booker, rising, budding star. They draft Mikal Bridges, fits nice on the defensive end, a good role player. They pick up a Jay Crowder. DeAndre Ayton's developing as a big guy. And all of a sudden, wow, their championship window goes from maybe that far open to wide open for a little while, and they're trying to jump through. So it will be a stern test, and this might be, that standings wise they are, but they might just be the best team in the NBA. So I'm looking forward to see how Toronto handles this on Tuesday night at Scotiabank Arena.
Yeah, me too. And Sherm, the backcourt is a big concern for the Toronto Raptors as they have both Booker and Paul. And those two players are in two different stages of their career, and they play almost a similar role in terms of being leaders, but then also guards together. But they thrive. How does that happen?
Well, I think Chris Paul is just the master of being able to disseminate in a game what players need and what he needs to take. And, you know, when you have a younger player in a, you know, guy who like Devin Booker, who can score from every area of the floor, Chris Paul knows how to utilize talent. You know, Jonesy talked about DeAndre Ayton. This is another big guy that Chris Paul understands how to get him involved and to keep him at a focal point. So, you know, Chris Paul does a great job of stirring the pot, but his veteran presence needs to be, I think, complemented with the talents of a young player like a Devin Booker and a DeAndre Ayton and a Mikal Bridges, all these guys who can provide different aspects on different ends of the floor. And I think they can coexist in a backcourt because they understand and respect what each other bring to the game. And when you're playing winning basketball, your lead guys are your lead guys and everybody else falls into place. And when you have very good leadership like the Suns do, starting with Monty Williams, who's a great leader on the bench, you know, it trickles down to a Chris Paul, who's a great on-floor leader. And you know, we're seeing Devin Booker blossom into this perennial all-star and a guy who's becoming one of the elite players in the league. All of a sudden now you have a recipe for some longevity in terms of that championship run. And they are a dangerous team because they can hurt you in so many ways. And, you know, Chris Paul has been deemed the best leader in basketball. This is why, because he can go to a team like the Phoenix Suns and he can make them not incrementally better, but significantly better, basically overnight. And that talent responds to it. So those two guys in the backcourt will give the Raptors, like they've given everybody else in the league, everything they can handle.
Exactly. When you have one of the best leaders in the league on your team, I think it's going to trickle down on your team specifically as well. So you could catch Toronto Raptors facing off against the Phoenix Suns Tuesday, 7:30 p.m. You can watch it on TSN and listen to it on the Sportsnet Fan 590. Now, Klay Thompson did make his return. I'm sure we are all excited to see that. So shout out to him. It's been about 2 years since he's touched a basketball in a game situation. So it was great to see him come back to the league and make an impact. From everybody from Raptors Today, Savanna Hamilton, Paul Jones, Sherman Hamilton, Jake LaRue, and Luke behind the scenes. Thanks for watching and have a great day.